back for another episode of the Bench Mob Podcast. We got here today a lot of stuff to talk on, a lot of stuff to touch. You know, we got basketball, free agency, the draft. We got everything with the NFL this past weekend. But definitely want to start off by saying shout out to everybody that is our followers, people that be commenting, liking, voting on the polls. We appreciate y'all. Y'all mean everything to Bench Mob family. So we appreciate y'all. Keep liking, keep commenting, keep sharing. Make sure you subscribe, all that good stuff. Shout out to the future subscribers. They aren't here yet. Shout out to y'all. Shout out to the future sponsors, everybody along that path. But we want to start off with this one, get straight into it. The versus battle. Big for the culture, Jeezy, Gucci. I ain't really listened to Gucci a lot myself growing up. I'm a Jeezy fan more so. Who y'all thought won? I'm gonna say Jeezy, but I saw people that were saying Gucci won. So I don't know who y'all like.
I didn't realize how big it was for the culture until I looked into it after the fact. Like, that's what I'm saying. I didn't know there was beefing like that for that long. Like, I didn't know the history. So I started looking into the history. I was like, oh, this is significant. Like, that's a big thing. But you know, yo, Gucci's more my time. Like, I'm just gonna be honest. Like, that's just Gucci's more my time. So I err on the side of Gucci. But I don't know, man. Like, Ja, what do you think?
I feel like just watching the highlights of it. I think Snowman won it. You know, I think, you know, he just came out with the classics, you know, and I know they had their beef and everything, but I just think that, like, I listened to him more than Gucci, so maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I don't know. I think he took it that night.
Yeah, I'm a little biased. I'll say that right now. 2.6 million people ended up tuning in, which is crazy numbers. It was big for the culture. It was big for Atlanta. I totally forgot to start off the show and mention we have two new people. Like, we talked about it, but I didn't introduce y'all to the listeners. We got here with me, Greg, Progress First basketball training CEO, G Baby, and we got the bearded one, Jad 2J, with us. Hopefully, if they like it or whatever, this will be our two new permanent additions to the Bench Mob family for our shows. Educated on sports, on all different sports. So we are more than happy to have y'all on the show. Thank y'all for joining in. Appreciate y'all for sending in y'all clips.
For sure.
Getting straight into the sports, though. Over the past weekend, we had the draft happen. There's been a lot of different viewpoints on it. We saw some people slip in the draft. We saw some people get drafted higher than they're supposed to. How do y'all feel about the draft? Y'all thoughts on it? Who was the winners? Who was the losers of this draft?
I'll be honest with you, man. I look at, we just talking about the Knicks earlier before the show started. I like what they did. It's crazy. I'm not one to say good things about the Knicks, man, but there hasn't been much good things to say since I've, just been watching sports my entire life. I'll be honest with you. Outside of that year with the Woodson year with Carmelo and them, but man, that was the best draft I've seen, and them having a while. And it started with some luck. Obi shouldn't have fell to 8. Like, that's crazy, but he did. So you have to be a little lucky sometimes. You get Quickly, who is underrated, like just wasn't on the radar, but can score all different types of ways off the bounce, hitting floaters, hitting threes at a high clip. I like him a lot. He's gonna play. He's gonna be an impact player for them right away, I feel like. And then you get Miles Powell, undrafted, which wasn't supposed to happen either, but it happened. You get Miles Powell, and again, shooting, right? In a year after their weakness was shooting, right? They didn't have shooters. Yeah. They had 4 power forwards last year. They were running out there. It was a nightmare. So then you go get Powell and these guys who can shoot the ball and space the floor, and you get RJ some help to get him some lanes to drive to the basket, and hopefully he's shooting the ball better next year too. They're a winner. I thought they did a really good job in the draft, man. And then Sixers too with that pickup of Tyrese Maxey was I liked it too. And then also everything they did with free agency, and we'll get to free agency too, but I liked it. What about you, Ja?
Who'd you like in the draft?
Well, I was waiting for the Knicks to mess it up because they normally do. I was waiting for them to draft some European player I never heard of. But I think I'll be honest with you. I think the top 3 went exactly how I thought it was gonna go. Just different variations of who was gonna go where. But I do like Maxey to the Sixers. I think that was a steal. And I think that the kid Tyler, that he fell down to the Kings. I think he dropped way too low. So I mean, I would probably say like I like what the Hornets did. I like what getting LaMelo, and I like Vernon Carey because that's a big presence in the paint. So I think that they fit the needs that they wanted to get. So I think, and then obviously they got some free agent players, but I think the Hornets did pretty well in the draft.
What y'all think about the
Look,
Warriors? We find out on draft night Clay basically isn't coming back. If y'all had that number 2 pick, do you think knowing what y'all know with Clay, do y'all still draft Wiseman or y'all try to get maybe LaMelo?
I'm going Wiseman. I was of the mindset that Wiseman was the pick that made sense for them because all these years, we look at these, even their dynasty years, who are they running out there at center? Kevon Looney, right? For most of those years.
Zaza.
Bogut was their best center. Right?
Zaza.
Zaza. Right. So you needed a center. You needed a presence down there. Wiseman's talented, right? He plays away from the basket, plays in the paint. I think he's really, really talented. I think they could have done with like a more veteran presence in the paint too, like getting a Marc Gasol, but he's a Laker. We'll talk about them soon too, I'm sure. But yeah, man, like I like that pick a lot. Melo wouldn't have fit. I think Melo's more of that playmaking guard. I think it could have worked right without Clay there that one year, but long term, you got to think about it long term for him. I think the best opportunities for him to be in a situation where, hey, the ball's yours, let's go. You and him and Devontae Graham, I like that backcourt a lot. I think they balance each other out really well in Charlotte because Devontae's more of that shooter too. So I liked it a lot. I thought they made the right move considering the situation.
Do y'all think you think Terry Rozier gets moved to the bench now? Because Terry's still there. Scary Terry.
I think Terry Rozier, his days in Charlotte is numbered, honestly, because he's the type of player he wants to play. I don't see him wanting to come off the bench. So I think they're gonna make a move for him because obviously LaMelo's starting and Graham's starting. So I mean, unless he takes that 6-man role, I think his days is numbered.
Yeah, it will be intriguing to see how they do that, especially since they traded for him last year. They wanted him to be. I think they had it in him being a face of the franchise type player, and then Graham actually played better than him by all accounts, in my opinion, than he actually played last year, which then makes it in a position where you draft LaMelo. Like, all right, obviously you don't believe in Terry Rozier. You don't draft LaMelo if you believe in Terry Rozier. I agree with you too. I like the pick the Kings got at number 12, Tyrese Halliburton. That's going to be a good backup for Fox, and he can play side by side. 6'5". Plays defense, can score. He's a seasoned player. So I like that pick. I agree. I was really shocked and surprised. The Knicks actually did a decent job. They didn't mess it up. They didn't trade. You get Obi Toppin to drop that far down, which I think some teams above that are going to regret that. Chicago, Cleveland, I think he was on the board. Y'all should have.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about losers yet, right? Because Chicago pick was
Oh yeah, that was
that Chicago pick me in my head. I was just like, all right, maybe these scouts get paid a lot of money. This Pat Williams kid looks like he has physical tools. You can see it in the film when you watch him. And I went back and I watched him. I'm scratching my head. I'm like, I just don't understand how he goes top 4. Like, what's happening? He's got a lot of physical tools, but to go that high, right? I think that's the theme of this whole draft, right? Skilled players falling. The physical tool guys getting moved up. Why we have a frustrated night for guys like Miles Powell, Marcus Howard out of Marquette, who is killing, super skilled, right? Doesn't get drafted. It's a common theme you saw.
I think Chicago definitely overthought that pick. I think they tried to outsmart everybody. Wow. And who knows? He might be one of those good defenders and stuff like that. But that was a reach. I think they're gonna regret that. That's like that Michael Kidd-Gilchrist at number 2 a few years ago. That didn't make no sense, and they regretted that. So we'll see, but it'll be definitely dropped because of that pick. That threw off everybody.
I think the Hawks did a good job. I didn't like that first pick because you draft basically a defensive minded big man who rebounds basically, right? But you still already have John Collins there, and you still have Clint Capella under contract, so he's coming back healthy.
It's funny, you know what? Like you're saying that, and I'm thinking about it. What don't the Hawks do well? Play D. Like Trae Young is horrible defensively, right? So they went out, they signed Chris Dunn, who plays defense, and you get Rondo. Who locks up, plays defense too, right? When he wants to, when he's motivated. We'll see how long that lasts in Atlanta, right? That may not go that well, but I think creating like that big front line makes some sense because again, guys are getting right past Trae Young in that pick and roll game or even ISOing. So it makes some sense. But John Collins looks like he's on the way out. I heard there was rumors that those guys weren't getting along anyways, just from a playing standpoint, right? Like, hey,
Well,
that's not
John
me.
Collins,
Yeah,
he wants a max deal, so
there
I
you
don't
go.
think they're trying to pay him that. So
Right.
yeah, he's probably on the way out.
Mhm.
Get some value for him. So yeah, that pick, I guess they made that pick thinking they're going to trade him because that's the only reason that made sense to me.
Yeah, if they got the inside tip where they already having the mindset that they're not going to pay John Collins or he's on his way out, then yeah, that pick makes sense. Especially how the rookie deals go. Hey, if John Collins about to be out in a year or two, we could get the same type of player, and he's going to be cheaper in the long run because he's still be on that rookie contract. But looking at the rest of that draft, we see players, as you mentioned, Marcus Howard drop. We see players like Miles Powell. It, created a conversation and a thought. Why does it seem, some people say this is a narrative, some people disagree. It seems as if players that end up staying 3-4 years are basically, they're faulted for staying 3-4 years, and you see them get drafted later. And positions where sometimes they don't even get drafted at all. I'm going to throw out some names to y'all. The last player that was a 4-year player to actually get drafted number 1 overall was Kenyon Martin in 2000. We in 2020, that's 20 years.
Yep.
But you have people that'll argue on the other side. Damian Lillard, 4 years, went number 6. JJ Redick stayed 4 years, went number 6. Tim Duncan went number 1 overall, but 97. Nick Collison went number 12. Now, people like me who I think they're faulted, you could then look at Chandler Parsons, which we're not going to say he's an elite player.
Definitely
we're not going to say that. He got his bag.
Man. He got a bag, but he should be in jail right now. He robbed like 8 teams.
Oh my God.
Number 38 pick. George Hill went number 26. Jeremy Lin, he had that run with Linsanity. He went undrafted. Wesley Matthews, who just got signed by the champs, by the Lakers, he was undrafted. Draymond Green, the champion himself, number 35 overall pick, and David Lee with number 30. How do y'all feel about, is this an actual true thing that basically they're faulted for staying late? And if so, why is it that the NBA faults players for staying late and actually being more NBA ready, but they value he's 18 with a ceiling to be this when you got somebody that's already at that ceiling?
I think well, two things. I think when you stay 4 years, NBA scouts sometimes look at it like if you were good enough, you probably would have came out already, a couple of years ago. And also, they have all these, it's just more years that they get to groom those players. Like if you're at 22, 23 coming out of college, they think that, that's, you might have hit your peak, even though people's players' primes are not until 27, 28, so it's just how you look at it. But, there's a lot of players that, usually if you're good enough, you're out in 1 year, and obviously some people need that 3 to 4 years, but for the most part, I think, like you said, if you're good enough, 1 to 2 years max, and you're in the NBA. So I think, they just don't want. It's more of a developmental with these players that after 4 years they're thinking that maybe they need even more work. And after 4 years, you have to come out. You don't have a choice. So maybe they think that they're still not ready. So like I said, I think it's obviously a lot of the talent based, and it's not to say that's impossible because obviously you named a few players that did it, but I think for the most part, they look at it that way.
You look at the thing. One of the things before you go, Greg, that I always think about when I look at it is like, this doesn't really exist outside of the NBA world. Like if you go to your job, they want 4 or 5, 6 years experience, and they're not going to hire you. We've seen it plenty of times, us graduating high school, college. Hey, so I know you want a job. I know you need to work, but you need 12 years experience. You need this. You need to have a doctorate. I'm like, bro, I just graduated. I need a job first to get the experience. NBA, hey, so you look like you might be decent. You might be a superstar. We'll give you that shot. I just always find that interesting. This doesn't happen anywhere else but the NBA. Everywhere else loves the experience factor. But go ahead, Greg.
Nah, yeah, you and Jabo hit it like on the head for me too. when I look at it now, like the way that it's all changed with drafting players now is gone from that 4-year model. And even then, like back when guys like Kobe was getting drafted, Kobe came straight out of high school, right? You could come out of high school, but for the most part, if you went to college, you were there for 2, 3 years. Like that's what it was. Vince Carter comes to mind. Think about a guy who stayed in college later. I think it was his third year he left.
Yeah.
Curry too. Like it's just changed, and now like you got the younger guys who got on the AAU circuit and they're playing, getting a lot more exposure early on. And these NBA scouts are like skipping like high school games and going straight to these AAU games, and so they're seeing you play, the Tennessee Titans like in some AAU tournament somewhere, and you're playing really well, and you're already on the radar. They're already kind of projecting how they can mold your game right out of the gate when you're 18, 19. Plus that 4-year contract that is stretched. It's a math game too, right? It'll stretch a little bit longer. You're younger. They're not paying you your second contract. By the time you're in the second contract, being 23, 24, you're going to be near 30, 28, 29. So it's a numbers game too. But I think it's bogus, right? You take the best possible player you can, no matter what. Like I think CJ went to school. CJ McCollum, right? Was he a 4-year guy coming out?
Yeah.
And he's a killer, right? And he's gotten better since he's gotten in the league. Sure, he's older, but he's got to kind of game him to age smoothly. He's a great shooter, right? So it's really a hit and miss. There's no science to this thing, but I think that they miss out when they don't draft those guys who are 4-year players. Dame's obviously a great example, and he went 6. You can make the case 5 teams missed on him. I don't know who went number 1 that draft. So it's crazy, right? It's crazy. They'll miss, and it's for that thinking. Or we can mold this Patrick Williams who went number 4 into the next Kawhi. That's probably what they're thinking, right? Instead of going with Obi who played 4 years and is already polished, right? So I don't agree with the school of thought, but every player has a different set of rules that you're going to kind of measure them by. Like LaMelo was an 18-year-old who's ready to go, but it's a different circumstance.
Yeah, he did different. I think it's because a lot of times even these players that they leave earlier than they're supposed to because they just got that raw talent. Sometimes they should stay 2 more years and they'll end up being better. A lot of these players that come out after their freshman and sophomore year because they go to Kentucky and Duke and the schools probably tell them you can't come back because you're not going to have a playing time, so they get forced to go there and they're not really ready yet. Like I think Harry Giles was one of those. I mean, he had injury problems, but I think that he had immense talent. So I think if he's the type of player, maybe if he stayed a couple more years, actually developed his game, and obviously didn't get hurt, he probably would not be bouncing around right now. So I just think that it's a combination of the schools forcing you out when you're not really ready yet, because obviously they made their money off you. They're waiting for the next player now. So I think like I said, if they did stay a couple more years, they would probably work out better. Like not everybody's LeBron James and Kevin Garnett Kobe that can come out when they're 18 years old and dominate the league. Right. So I think they should change the rule. I don't think you should be allowed to come out after 1 year. Because or you should go to school for 1 year. Otherwise, go to that. They have that new thing with the G League. Do that, and then you don't have to go to school for 2-3 years.
I think that option to go to G League for 1 year is a real good thing. Especially then, it's just really just development then, because a lot of them. Another thing where I could understand players leaving early, especially those coming from poverty-stricken areas. You need that bad, so. I get that aspect. I just don't think NBA teams should penalize those that end up staying. You feel me? Like sometimes, like you mentioned, even people arguably considered Michael Jordan the GOAT. He didn't come out till his 3rd year.
Right.
And he was trying to come back that 4th year, but that was a different time. As Greg has mentioned, jokers that are 11 years old, kids have mixtapes already at 11.
Yep.
And you seeing kids talking about Coach K at the game at 11 years old, and they got a soft offer to come to Duke in year 2034.
That is real.
That's what it is now.
Like I can speak for me. I don't think, at least for me, I didn't start really getting seriously training at 8, 9, 10 years old. Like they're starting earlier and earlier. I'm seeing kids 8 years old. Like, yeah, I'm doing 3 days.
Yep. Crazy.
Yeah.
So
and that's the thing though, right? So like what happens is it really messes up the whole process for the late bloomer. The late bloomers are the guys that, they can be special, right? You just don't see it coming when they're 15, 16, whatever it is, right? I think about Cole Anthony, like as an example, right? Always been on the radar. Son of an NBA player, but been on the radar, crazy athletic, genuinely skilled, can really play. Had a bad year last year, got hurt a lot, but like again, gets drafted what, 15? He had a
15 to
bad
Orlando.
year. He had a bad year. And yes, there were circumstances he was hurt. I get it. Like he's really talented. I actually like him a lot. But that's my point. Take these guys who they're on the radar, they're well known, you know them all throughout their high school circuit. We can mold them into whatever. We trust our guys here in house to make him great, as opposed to saying, all right, well, like he needs another year. Like he's just not gonna make an impact right away. So you're gonna see a lot of that this year, I feel like, more than anything else. But guys, people are better now too. Hoopers are better now coming up, so that there is some credibility to that too, for sure.
Yeah, just another team to throw out there that are always great at finding these late bloomers or people that stay later. Forgot to mention them, the Spurs. Their 2 picks, Vassell and Trey Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Under Popovich, I think they're going to flourish. It's going to be that system. We're going to see them. They won't probably be in the conversation of Rookie of the Year, but they'll be making impact to having the Spurs winning games, especially in that system. You still got LaMarcus Aldridge there, and you got DeRozan who signed back. Hey, I think those were some really good picks for San Antonio, and I know those two, maybe Trey Jones specifically, wanted to go higher, but hey, going to San Antonio under Greg Popovich, that's a win-win, my guy. Like,
Yeah, you can't ask for a better situation than that.
No. And Trey Jones'
so
defense, and you pairing it with DeJounte Murray defensively, and those guys on the floor at the same time, I don't know how much you're going to score, right? You got KD and Kyrie, and that's usually got KD and Kyrie on the other side of things, then it can get a little crazy. But other than that, like it's going to be a tough night for most teams playing against them. They're really building a young, athletic, like defensive-oriented team. Like, and Popovich always got something up his sleeve. I don't expect them to be down for too long.
Nah, I'd see them. Hey, they almost got to the playoffs
This year, right?
this year in that bubble. If Phoenix didn't ball out and if the Blazers didn't do what they did, we might be having a different conversation with San Antonio. But, of course, we talking about all these undrafted players. We decided on the show to actually do like a draft to pick our top 3 undrafted players that we have in history who we would choose. So we'll start off with Greg, then we'll go with Jad, then me, and then back around. So Greg with the first pick.
Yeah, no, I've been debating about this since we talked about this last night. But I think Ben Wallace got to be my number 1 guy, man. The theme of the day for these undrafted guys is that all of them star in their roles. You're not going to find this unprecedented superstar 1A guy, alpha guy on here, right? But you're going to find a bunch of guys who were stars at their roles. So like, who did it the best? Ben Wallace. In his era, like the big man wasn't marginalized. He did his job, roamed the paint, protected the paint, was just a dog, right? And how many defensive teams? I think I saw he was an all-star at least 4 times there, I think, in his career. Made all defensive team almost every year he was in the league, especially in his prime. Yeah, that dude, I think he's the best undrafted guy. And really a guy that doesn't come to mind that often when we talk about players.
Yeah, Ben Wallace sometimes is forgotten, but they don't get that championship without Big Ben.
Nah, no way.
No, yeah, but Big Ben was a defensive prowl,
Yeah, for sure.
Who you drafting?
For me, it was tough, but I guess my number 1 pick would have definitely been John Starks. I actually almost forgot he went undrafted, and then you just think about what he brought to the table. He wasn't the biggest guy, but you didn't want to play against him. That guy can just dunk all over you. He was just ferocious. Playmaker. He kind of reminded you like maybe like a smaller Russell Westbrook kind of. He just came at you always. And like I said, you wouldn't think of it, but I mean, look at those. I mean, I'm sure that draft was crazy when he came out, but still, like the fact that he went undrafted, I feel like to me, like he was definitely a top guy that to never get drafted.
For my number 1 pick, as being a Lakers fan, I really didn't care for him, but Bruce Bowen on that Spurs team, very in San Antonio, they appreciated him. People that knew basketball appreciated him, but a lot of times would not show up per se in the box score, would not show up with the crazy stats, but he was one of I definitely would say is one of the start of the trend of the 3-and-D guy.
Yep.
Like Bruce Bowen was definitely revolutionary in that regard for that 3-and-D guy. Like he was huge for the Spurs during that time in their dynasty and helped literally shape what their actual culture ends up being. That's where you could draft somebody like Vassell, who's a 3-and-D guy to the Spurs. So that's my number one pick. I'll go with my second pick. We're going to go back around. My second pick, I would have to pick somebody else who was a 3-and-D guy who, rest in peace, Kobe, would give him fits. But Raja Bell.
Oh, man. He was on my list.
Yeah, he was annoying.
He was on my list.
Super annoying. I'll never forget that interview with Kobe when Raja Bell was on the Suns. And they asked Kobe, like, yeah, so who's this Raja Bell kid? He said he's going to stop. He was like, who? I don't know what that is. Proceeded to drop 40, but it was a hard 40. So 12 years in the league. I got Raja Bell as my second pick. Back to Ja and then Greg.
So I got my second pick. I'll probably go with Avery Johnson. You know, he was, actually, the fact that he was the only undrafted player to have his number retired is kind of mind blowing. I just remember, kind of when I started watching basketball around that time, 99, 2000. He was the starting point guard for the Spurs, and he just dominated. He led the whole postseason assists that year. Even until now, he has the most assists all time undrafted. I just say he was just a floor general. He just, he was the guy that, you wanted the ball in his hands at all time. And again, he wasn't the biggest guy, but, he just got the job done at all times. And without him, I don't think they win that title that year, honestly.
Nah, alluding to exactly what Greg said, these undrafted players, whatever their role was, they were stars in their role. They weren't the superstars, but they were stars in their role. And some of them, like we're mentioning, I think if they got that same opportunity as these top picks, could have been stars. But you get drafted like John Starks, you get drafted to the Knicks, you got Patrick Ewing already there, and he yelling in your ear. We've seen all the highlights of him yoking John Starks up. If John Starks was able to be in this league right now, he kind of would be like Westbrook, like, nah, this is my team. I'm gonna do what I want when I want, and I got a lot of heart and passion. I'm in your face with it. But during that time, nah, you had to you Robin to Patrick's Batman. But go ahead, Greg. You got two picks up.
Hey man, listen, I'm gonna surprise you guys a little bit. We're going with all these old school players, and I like that, but I think Fred VanVleet is a top 10 undrafted guy
He's on my
ever.
list.
Like for real, because if you look at him, like he's got a title. He was a big part of that title. He hit big shots, his role, his role is more fun to watch, right? Like he's not just there to do one specific thing. He does a lot. He sets up the offense. He hits open shots. He's also got a lot of autonomy and freedom in the offense to do what he wants to do out there. So I like him a lot. I think he's one of the best undrafted. And honestly, when you get that bag he got, which was he got the most money out of any undrafted player like ever.
Shout out to him for getting the bag. Let me hold $1, brother.
That's it. That's it. So when you get that bag, that speaks for itself. Like you got to be in top 10 company. So I'm going with him. And then when I circle back, man, look, the champs just got him. Wesley Matthews he's had a real sneaky good career, man. I may be overlooking some people, but I really like him a lot for that pick. I think last year he balled out, and shooters don't go anywhere, man. Like they get better with age. They're timeless, man. He played D. Right, he popped on his first year on the team with Utah. Right, remember him with Utah playing back then with AK-47 and them guys like that. I like him a lot. Has had a really great career, and I think he's gonna get a ring real soon.
Shout out to that longevity.
Yeah, man.
Back to you, your last pick.
Man, my final pick. You know what? It's probably not like the sexiest pick. But I follow him basically his whole career because I rock with that team. But I would say Udonis Haslem.
I was about to say him.
I just, the man's been playing it's 18 years now. He just signed another 1-year deal with Miami. The fact that he's been on one team for that long and not being the star player, which is actually even more impressive. The guy just, you don't want to go against him. You don't want him to guard you in the post. He's that rough rider. He's just the raggedy defender that, again, you want him on your team, but you don't want to go up against, and he knows his role. He had that mid-range game was beautiful. That jump shot was automatic, and like I said, he just played his part perfectly. And he's basically been a player coach for the last 10 years, so from like I said, from the 06 championship to the big three, even till now, the guy doesn't even look like he ages. I mean, he doesn't play a lot, but like I said, I just think that for the longevity and for what he did for his roles and stuff like that, I think, he was definitely my third pick.
Yeah, UD shot another person. It's not the big bag, but he keep getting them 1-year bags to
be what South Beach.
They add up. They add up just the same.
To be that player coach, please let me. I be telling people like, I couldn't be the 16th man. I will gladly be the 16th man. Give me $2.5 million a year. I get to practice. I get to play.
Travel.
Get to travel for free.
Flights.
What?
I'm good with that.
Just know that 16th man will give you 81 though. Like,
yeah, like that's what they don't get.
Oh yeah,
that's what they don't get, man.
Like, don't get it twisted. UD, if he wasn't again playing his role, UD could have been a 20-10 guy easily.
Right.
Easy for his career.
Oh yeah.
Had the mid range. He was lit pick and pop.
Yeah, a little hook game too.
Pick and pop automatic, 15, 18 footer.
Yep.
And then he played lockup, mad heart, and was a rebounding machine. You see, even when he get in, that you can play 4 minutes and get 6 boards. Like, wait, hold up. Joker had 4 minutes and had 6 boards? Dang.
It's crazy.
My last pick, I have to throw out there another classic. Y'all took my picks, which is why I said we had to make sure we had a long enough list. I had to throw in there Brad Miller from the Kings.
Okay.
Brad Miller, one of the players that played his role, but then definitely he expanded his game to keep him another 2 or 3 years. He started shooting threes, ended up averaging 13 points for his career, 8 rebounds. And another person he, didn't do what Van Vliet did and getting his big bag, but over his career for somebody undrafted, he made over $90 million. Correct. So the man made his bread, was able to stay in the league for a minute, productive. I know I like playing with him in 2K, stretch 5, pick and pop. He was knocking down 2-3 threes a game.
Yep.
Give me like 8 to 10 boards. That dude was legit.
One of those dudes who modernized the game, man. He's OG. People don't talk about those kind of players, but those guys are why you have guys like they're the reason why James Wiseman taking threes right now. It's those guys, man.
Games change, definitely.
Yeah. Shout out JJ Barea, man. JJ Barea, man.
I'll never forgive him, man.
He sticks around. JJ Barea.
Listen, I can't knock him. The guy's like 5'3" and he's doing his thing.
Man. Killer.
I can't forget.
Shout out to JJ Barea. I think, unfortunately, with how their guards have been balling, his career is probably winding up in Dallas. I don't see anybody probably signing him after that. But how Tim Hardaway Jr. played, how Seth Curry was playing last year, and shout out to him getting traded to Philly.
Philly, you want to talk about that?
That was a big move.
I think that was a big move for them, especially with them needing shoot. And Seth Curry, who is often in the shadow of Steph, but that man could shoot, that man could ball. He had to deal with injuries too, and people forgot about him. But Seth, healthy, definitely one of the big moves this offseason. Speaking of, since we already transitioned into it, what's been some of the big free agency offseason moves so far or trades that y'all see are going to be impactful for this season coming up?
Man.
Oof, so many.
That Lakers team, man. The Lakers. When I heard they got Trez, when I heard they got Trez, I couldn't believe it. Like the fact that these guys got Montrez, Dennis Schroeder, Mark Gasol signed recently, who
West.
was balled in the playoffs, right? Got KCP back on that $40 million deal, who balled out, deserved it. Shout out to him for getting his bag. He deserved it. You got the sixth man of the year, runner up on the same team. You're gonna start Dennis Schroeder. You're gonna have a crazy death lineup, right? You're gonna have Bron, Dennis, KCP, AD, and Trez as like, ooh, that's crazy. Like they got better. They went out and got significantly better. This is the deepest team Bron's ever played on. Like I don't see how teams are gonna contend with this, especially when you didn't get James Harden over there, the Nets, right? So nothing blew it out the water. Like so, I just think they really did a good job upgrading their team, man.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. Well, the biggest thing about Montrez going to the Lakers is that he's not on the Clippers no more.
Right.
You know, and yeah, they got Ibaka, but I don't really think well, first of all, they lost Jermichael Green, and so that was definitely a big. I mean, I know they got Luke Kennard, but they also lost Shamit, so I'm not really worried about them. But I'll be honest with you, definitely the Lakers. I think one free agency. And I think also, even though they're not getting really that much noise, I think Atlanta won free agency too. I mean, you figure, they got Rondo, they got Gallinari.
That was huge.
That was a sleeper pickup. And I mean, that's not a team you want to play against. I mean, I just think, especially in the East, they can sneak in the East, in that 7-8 seed. So I would probably say, the Lakers, the Hawks, I'm definitely missing somebody. I think I want to say the Hornets, but I think they overpaid for Hayward. I don't really like that.
That Hayward pick got me upset, man. I
That
saw that
120.
money, 120 for a guy who's missed 111 games over the last 2 seasons. That is
Yeah,
insane. That is
guaranteed too. That's fully
guaranteed
guaranteed.
bread.
Oh my god.
Jordan goes out and has a pretty good draft. And then he shoots himself right in the foot and picks up Hayward and throws a bag at him.
Well, I think it's because with I know with the cap and stuff like that, you have to spend a certain amount of money. So I guess if they have to do it. You never know. Maybe Hayward because honestly in Boston it was never going to work. They had like 45 small forwards, so that was never going to work. And so he doesn't have that problem in Charlotte. So if he stays healthy, you never know. I mean, I still think he's overpaid, but I think he'll do better than he did in Boston, maybe closer to Utah days. So yeah,
I sure hope so for their sake.
Hey, I need his agent. That's 2 big contracts for a one-time All-Star.
Insane.
I do need his agent's number. Yes.
For a guy who keeps flashing, he's just flashing, right? He's just showing guys, hey, I could be this, but I'm not. But I'm never that. But I could be. So y'all gonna pay me what I could be, right? That's crazy. His agent is a magician for real.
I think he will. I think he will flourish, especially with Dylan. With you got a LaMelo Ball, who is obviously a pass first guard. I'll get your opinion on this. It wasn't on the docket, but I want to hear what your thoughts on this, because I think what the issue was with Hayward, and I was saying this all last year, when you have Tatum on the rise, you have Jaylen Brown on the rise, you trade and get Kemba Walker, who we know the style he plays. He's never really averaged over 6-7 assists in his career. It was that situation where it was only one ball. Like, there's only one ball, and you have scorers on the team, or people that need the ball. You got Marcus Smart, who isn't a scorer, but you see he's not shy with getting his 12 to 15 shot attempts every single night.
Which irritates me.
Do you think what do y'all think about, teams when we have that conversation like, it's not enough ball to go around?
You overdraft one position, right? Like you went out and got Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. All right, cool. You're good right there. Like, let's stop. Nah. You got more for Semi Ojeleye off the bench. I think they drafted too. They've loaded up that front line, and then you go and you sign Gordon Hayward, right? And I think a big part of that was they wanted to see if they could get to form out their big three. In their mind, they were like, well, Gordon Hayward's going to be our superstar guy. We don't know where Tatum's going to be yet. I think when they signed him, Tatum hadn't burst onto the scene yet. So like we think we're gonna get our superstar guy. They got Kyrie around the same time, right? So they're like, okay, cool, we got our big three. And then I think it was Horford and the man in the middle. It's like, all right, we're good. Like let's run the East. Of course, the catastrophic injury happens to Gordon Hayward. But if you remember before that injury, he wasn't balling like that. Like it was tough because he's playing with Kyrie. And Kyrie is a ball dominant guy, right? That's just the way it works, and rightfully so. He's a killer. Let's leave it at that. But it just didn't work from the very beginning. At his time in Boston, it didn't really work, and there were too many of them. And when Tatum took that next step, it phased him out. It just faded Gordon Hayward out of it, And you mix the injury with that, and not being like a system fit, in which they realized a little too late.
I think it's honestly, I mean, it's really, I only blame Hayward. He chose, it wasn't a trade. He chose Boston over Miami, over New York, all these other teams. So you got to see that whether Tatum's a star yet, you got to see that. I mean, they drafted him high, so they got to, you got to understand he's gonna get a lot of playing time. So I just think that he made the wrong decision. I mean, obviously it didn't really affect him, but I just think that these players got to start thinking about fit more than all right, you go to a team that's maybe a better chance of contending, but it's just not going to work because now you completely ruined everything. It's the same thing when Kyrie went to Boston. They worked better without Kyrie. So it's all about fit. Nowadays, these players just get in the bag and it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I think fit and chemistry. Like, of course, we all heard the rumors of Harden going to Brooklyn, and it'd be Harden, Kyrie, and KD. I'm sorry.
No,
I don't think that would work. Chemistry, people needing the style of play. Harden is a ball dominant guy. 25, 35 dribbles, one possession. Kyrie, ball dominant guy, typically needs dribbles. KD, we know he don't need 2-3 dribbles. He can pull up from the parking lot and he good. But when then you talk about the chemistry aspect, it's safe to say if y'all watching this, y'all could come on the show and argue, but KD, typically sensitive guy, Kyrie, a little touchy guy, and then you add James Harden in the mix, a little touchy guy. What happens when you have that game where it's like, yo, Brooklyn lost, hey, Kyrie, hey, Harden, what do y'all think about the offense tonight? You only had 9 points, 6 attempts. Are we still going to be friends? Or is it still, this is my best friend? I think that's where
I think it would work if they had 2 basketballs that they play with, or 3. Honestly, I mean, people you fall in love with, like, if you're a Brooklyn fan and you're just naive to the fact that the names sound great. I mean, James Harden, Kyrie, and Kevin Durant, but you gotta understand that the difference between when KD went to the Warriors is that Thompson and Curry don't need the ball in their hands to be dominant. So they spot up shooters or they run the baseline. So I just don't even understand how it's possible that they literally, Harden and Kyrie, are not known to be passed. I mean, Harden a little bit. I mean, but that would not have worked. So I was hoping that they gutted Brooklyn, honestly, for that. But he's gonna get moved. I just don't think it's gonna be there.
So I'm gonna give you guys my take on this. I'm a Brooklyn Nets fan, lifelong, right? Mm-hmm. Or Jersey Nets to Brooklyn, like whatever. Yeah. But so when I heard it, same thing. I'm thinking to myself, like, this isn't gonna work. This is ridiculous. Like, this is just ridiculous. Not a ridiculous nonsense rumor. There's not enough basketballs to go around, and it'd be a horrible thing just with all these guys' track record, with the emotions and all that stuff and how they are. But then I went back and watched old James Harden film from those Thunder years when he played with Russ and he played with KD, obviously. And it was entirely different. Like, that guy used to play basketball beautifully. Like, I don't enjoy watching James Harden anymore. Like, I'm at a point where the 35 dribbles, a possession, D'Antoni created a monster. And you can say it's in a good way, but they haven't won anything. So I don't think it's a good thing. He's not playing ball the right way, which is a large reason why they don't win and why Chris Paul's running out of town and why Russ wants out too, right? Like, those are reports, right? I think he could revert back to those old ways. It is a long shot. If I as a Nets fan, my issue is I'm torn because you're going to trade him for guys like who? Like, you're going to trade Dinwiddie, LeVert, the heart and soul of what we built from the very bottom, right? Like, the Nets were at the bottom of the barrel. No one cared about the Nets. They were horrible. And then you come up and you got these guys, these homegrown supers, like, well, stars. Let's not go crazy. Stars, and you're gonna trade the way the whole farm. You have a championship team right now. Joe Harris, Landry Shamet,
Allen.
great bench, Allen, right? Who they're not gonna pay. They probably trade him anyways. He might have to go. But that's okay. Um, you have a bunch of these guys around on the team. And you have a championship team right now, but then you're going to talk about adding a guy like James Harden to the mix. That's like, it's dangerous, but I have visions of how well it could work if it was a perfect world. That being said, I don't want the trade to go through. I don't think the Rockets have a lot of leverage in the conversation because James can just say, "I have 2 years off of my deal. I'm not
Well,
re-signing with you."
well,
I'm just
I think not to cut you off. I think Harden has zero leverage. I mean, he has 2 years left on his deal. So listen, when you're a superstar, well, first of all, just to bring up your point about the old school Harden, I don't know. It's tough to go back to your ways 10 years ago.
I agree.
And you got to keep in mind, Dan Tony's on that staff now.
Mhm.
So he's gonna be in his ear. Because Steve Nash he's the head coach. So I don't really know. But because apparently Kyrie, KD are head coaches too, or whatever Kyrie said. So I just think that Harden, it's not. You have to understand. You make that move, it's either going to be great or a disaster because you're going to have no team. That's going to be like when they traded Melo and they gutted their team when he could have just waited 6 months and Melo was going to join that team. So you got to be careful gutting your team for like I would gut my team for Giannis, but that's just because that's
That's about team construction, though. That's about team construction, though.
Right. So for Miami, I would give up certain players for Giannis, but if you're Brooklyn, you're gonna give up your whole team and 4 first. It's gonna be a minimum of 4 first-round picks because you saw Drew Holiday got on the market. So I that definitely doesn't make any sense to do that. I think Harden gets moved, but I think it's more likely Philly, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think another team that we mentioned before we transition, the Suns. James Jones has really turned in to seem like a good GM. He's doing a good job in his role. They signed back Saric and they get CP3. I think, with the momentum that they had from the bubble and you add CP3 to this mix and you saw what he was able to do with that young OKC team as just being a floor general, a leader. You add that with Booker, who, hey, it's been rumored my man is tired of losing. So you add CP3 to that mix. Now I think in the bigger scheme of things, you keep Booker there. You keep Booker happy because in this era of force my way out to do what I want to do, to go where I want to go, to play with my friends, hey, if they don't get CP3, if they don't make the playoffs next year or in the next 2 years, we can see him maybe going to Minnesota to be with his boys. So
yeah.
prevent that from happening.
I think Suns definitely make the playoffs this year. Now, I don't want to say definitely because I don't know who actually gets eliminated from those eight spots. But, yeah, the Suns are definitely making noise. I mean, people sleep on, they sleep on the fact that, DeAndre Ayton is so underrated. The man is averaging like 18 and 12. And he gets overlooked because he's not Doncic averaging, 28, 9 and 9. So I think that team is very well balanced. I mean, Devin Booker is obviously a superstar, but I will say I think his days are numbered in Phoenix too. Just like I said, you just want to play with your friends nowadays. So he might ride it out a little bit. I forgot how many years he got left on his contract, but I think he'll eventually Minnesota is probably gonna be the way he's gonna go. The Towns and Russell.
Yeah, I can see that happening. Playing with your boys, I just think this helps.
Oh, for now,
hold it off.
Yeah, it's like a bandage for now.
Exactly. My thoughts exactly. They're going to be competitive. They're making the playoffs this year. Like it's a lot. Like that they won. They were one of the offseason winners I had because you got Jay Crowder too, right?
Yep.
Like you got guys that can shoot all around the floor. That's an underrated signing too. So they're going to be. They're a really good team. They're going to be 6 to 8. Right. And by the way, the playoffs got expanded to 10 teams getting in on each side.
Yep,
so, yeah, it's a lock. Are we going to have some bad teams in the playoffs this year? All right. We're going to get like Detroit in there.
Well, I think in the West to be 10 good teams. But in the
Yeah,
East,
in the East, we're gonna get some nasty first round basketball. Like,
it's
just no way.
Yeah.
All right, that 1 versus 10 matchup, that Brooklyn versus whoever they play matchup. I'm talking like that. But
Yeah, okay.
like that whoever they play that in that last seed, like it's gonna be an ugly matchup. But and all jokes aside, I think that the Suns put it off. Right, like you guys are saying, I think Devin Booker's gonna because CP is 35, so and you're paying him $40 million a year. At some point, the wheels are gonna have to fall off.
Yeah, he gets injured a lot too.
CP3 talking about generational wealth.
Yep.
And that's shout out to him for just I'm gonna just be look. I mean, I'll probably do the same thing. I go to OKC. Y'all don't expect us to win more than 30 games. I get them to the playoffs. But even if we won 15 games, I'm getting that bag at 34.
Do you remember before the season when he left Houston, what the narrative was around him? Hey, we can't. I think the Knicks rumor started around that time, and they were like, "Yeah, but he's got $40 million in his contract. Like, we want to dump that salary. We got to try to dump the salary." Is what we were hearing. He went to OKC and completely recreated his value. They got a ton of pick. What they get for CP in that trade?
Yeah.
Well, they got the Houston. Well, no, Houston had to give up first round picks because
to get rid of him
because they got Westbrook. Yeah,
right. And then, but I'm talking about the trade where he goes to the Phoenix this summer. What did they get back?
They got
Kelly
a first
Oubre.
rounder.
They got Oubre in that deal.
Well, yeah. So
Oubre got moved eventually.
Yeah, they got moved.
Yeah.
So they essentially got because when they moved Oubre, they got another first rounder. So I guess they got 2 first rounders, probably 2 second rounders. I mean, they got at some point the one draft is going to be every pick is going to be from them. So
right. So my thing is, who would have guessed that CP's command those kind of assets in return for a trade, right? He's amazing. Like he's a made man. I think if I'm him, right, the $40 million, genius to get your money while you can, right? I did the sad thing for me about him is I love CP and I know he's not going to win a ring. Like I just know it's not going to happen.
Man.
And that breaks when those Lakers rumors started up towards the end of the season too, after the bubble. I was like, please let that happen. Get him with Bron. Let's go coast to one because you deserve one. That's not.
That's the thing too with CP3. The rumors were there, and they gave him the opportunity when all season started. They gave him the opportunity like, yo, all right, so CP3, you go kind of start talking to teams. The CP3 that we all know, it was rumored he didn't want to go to LA because they just won the ring. Mm-hmm. CP3 is that type of player. Like, nah, I'm not going to go there. I want to be one of the focal pieces of why they get the ring. So I wanted him to go. I want him to go to LA for him to get a ring. I wanted to see Melo sign with LA to get a ring. I'm glad he did not go back to New York. I get it. That's home. But I'm glad, like, at least we can say the narrative that he's trying to win. Because if he went back to New York, the whole narrative changes. Like, all right, Melo wasn't trying to win. Mm-hmm. But I'm glad he signs back. I think Portland, with their additions, getting Enes Kanter, they get back in the playoffs. But
yeah, they got Derek Jones. So I will say the one I think the best move, honestly, I forgot to say earlier, in free agency trades was. However, Daryl Morey got Al Horford's contract off the books. He needs to win the GM of the year because
magician.
And you flip that essentially for Seth Curry and Danny Green. I'm not even sure how that was legal.
Magician. I saw that deal went through and I was like, okay, the Sixers are serious.
Oh yeah.
I don't know that I fear them anymore. Maybe I'm coming from the lens of a Brooklyn fan. Let me just try to look at it from like a bird's eye view. They're going to be a very good team.
I think they're the 2 seed if everyone stays healthy.
I could definitely see that.
Yeah, the East That's next year again is going to be very top heavy, but that top heavy 3-4 teams,
heavyweights,
I think it's going to all be up in the mix of, again, kind of what you'll see this year. Like, till you see the playoffs, until you see who's healthy and the chemistry, I think it's going to be up in the air pretty much the whole year. Like, Miami was able to get into the playoffs. They was clicking on all cylinders at the right time. That shout out Pat Riley, just the culture they built there. GOAT for sure. Shout out to their culture. They signed back Goran Dragic. Miami's going to be in the mix. Philly's going to be in the mix. Toronto, they get back Van Vliet. They lose
Boston.
Ibaka. Boston's going to be in the mix. And then you got Brooklyn in the mix too. Like, that's 4 or 5 teams right there that's in the mix to possibly.
Oh, Milwaukee too.
Milwaukee.
So
I like the picks that they did, some of the trades. It's just I want to see what happens in the playoffs. I've been saying it for like the last 3-4 years.
Yeah.
Milwaukee is so great in the regular season. And then when they get to the playoffs, is Eric Bledsoe. They got him out of there. They got Eric Bledsoe out of there.
Oh, man. Yeah. Well, Giannis got to get a jump shot. That's his problem.
Thank you. Let's give the hot take. Okay, my hot take is it's Giannis's fault. It's all his fault. Because you know why? Because like if I can sit in a 2-2-1 and you can't shoot, your guys are gonna shoot to a certain average. We can play the numbers game as long as we can keep you limited. Like you can't. He's too limited, right? And he's not a back to the basket player. And with the way the modern day defense is played, he can't sit in there too long in the paint. Like it just makes it really difficult for his team to operate. He's got to get his jump shot right, and until he does,
and not getting Bogdan hurt.
We called it. We called it in February on the show. If Miami met up,
I knew
Milwaukee,
me too.
Bam Adebayo, so underrated, so underrated. His value. I think he should have won Most Improved Player last year. So, just because of his impact for your team.
I would say but you have to understand with Brandon Ingram, his points per game, how much it went up. It would have been like almost so tough for him not to get it. Like Bam definitely did he definitely improved, but I mean, what's his name? Brandon Ingram went from like 13 points a game to 24, and he's about to get the bag, which I'm not sure what New Orleans is doing because they're taking too long with that. But
what are they doing in general? Well, like that, they're a loser in this whole thing. We didn't even get to them. Like, it's not enough time in the show to get to these guys. Like, they dropped Kara Lewis, they trade for Eric Bledsoe. So what's going on with Zoe?
Well, I think they're going to eventually probably move Bledsoe because you got Lonzo and Lewis, which I think that works perfectly for what Zion does. And I like the Steven Adams trade. I don't like the fact that he doesn't space the floor, but everything else I do like about him. Because you got to build around Zion and Ingram. So. I think I got faith in David Griffin. I just think that he's got a lot of things to play with, so I think that they'll be fine. Zion just got to stay healthy. That's all.
What's the reason? And that most improved player conversation, Devontae Graham, man, that was my MIP. He didn't get it. I'm not happy about it. That man balled out. I saw him come to Brooklyn and tear our hearts out. That guy's crazy. Okay, put up 30 feet.
I think the rankings are right though. Ingram, Adebayo, Graham. You could have won with either one, but I don't know. Man, Ingram is the poor man KD. I don't know.
We knew that was coming.
Yeah,
I know it was coming. Devontae was
up the blue. Because the thing with you see with BI, and this how we'll close out this show. We're gonna have to get on the football talk on the next episode, but the thing that a lot of people do not mention, if you're a young player and you play on LeBron's team, F your growth.
Oh, yeah. That's why Kuzma wants out of there.
If Kuzma goes somewhere else, we might see Most Improved Player with Kuz. It's hard if you're not somebody that has the confidence, the swagger, and the just I don't give a darn attitude like a Kyrie, where you're going to still be able to get your game off. You're going to still be able to play your game and improve and maturate as any other young player.
Theme of the show, man, star in your role. Kuz struggled starring in his role. That was his problem, especially in the bubble, right? Like in the season, and all season he did too. I said if Kuz could hit 35% of his threes, they'd win a championship. Right? But like he didn't want to just be 3 and D, and it was killing him. Like he feels restricted, and I get that. Like, but you just got to chip, bro. Like, all right, you got your ring. They're probably not gonna run it back with him. I wouldn't throw the bag at Kuz.
They're gonna move him. They're waiting for
move him.
Right. I thought they were gonna move for Bogdan, but that didn't work out.
Yeah, all the young hoopers listen to this podcast. Star in your role, bro. There's only so many stars in the NBA, bro, or in any league, like in any team. I deal with this often, just coaching, bro. Star in your role,
and role players get the bag too. Don't forget
Bertans from shout out to 80 what 80 M's to shoot. Star in your role, guys. Like, stop.
That role.
Stop doing that. Stop doing them ISO drills and going to the trash cans in the gym by yourself, bro. Start spotting up, man. Like, it's not enough spots for stars out here. Not enough ISO. We can't call enough ISOs for everybody. Everybody want to play ISO. Star in your role.
And shooters last forever. Don't forget that.
Telling you, man.
I think we got the title for the show. Star in your role. That's the title of this show. For this episode. Episode 35. Star in your role. Y'all know the vibes. If you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. Bench mob, we out. Peace.
Peace.
Peace out.